journey through the stories that define the artists playing Bonnaroo. Who are they? What are they? What will you see? The what? Which bands this year that matter?
Yay.
With Brad Steiner and Barry Corder.
It is a What Podcast exclusive, a little road trip that we took up to Knoxville, Tennessee to visit now our best friends in the world, and we hope they are yours as well.
Wasn't that crazy? I'm still sort of trying to get over.
Is what crazy? What
the trip.
What should we be? What did we do, Barry?
Well, all I know is, a week ago we had this crazy idea to ask maybe Ted Heinig, Vice President of AC Entertainment, to be on the show.
Okay.
Called him, and he said, you don't want to talk to me. How about I get you the two guys that booked the festival? Booked the lineup. And I, of course, said no. Who would want that?
You really drive a hard bargain. You really do.
Who would want to know how they pick the bands that are on that lineup?
Well, our rider was very long. We needed a lot of things to go right before we could make the trip all the way to Knoxville. And this is what we've got for you today. Today, we get to talk to the guys that actually booked the festival. So whether or not you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on your iTunes, or any of your devices, we appreciate you being a part of the What Podcast. That's Brad. I'm Brad. That's Barry. I'm Brad. Barry Corder.
I think that's right.
I'm Brad Steiner. So I guess this officially kicks off season 3 of a podcast.
Yeah, and that's why I thought Ted made sense. You know, let's start with the big cheese, so to speak. Ashley Caps we've had before.
We like to have somebody from the festival sort of set the table for us most times.
Set the table, and I kid obviously when he said, "How about the two guys that booked it?" Because we're still talking about that lineup, and then to get the guys that did it, and
plus he gave us the idea, which makes us much happier. We ran out of ideas.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. What's your takeaway from that conversation?
Well,
you guys are going to hear it's probably going to be 2 parts.
It's a 2-parter.
So much they gave us so much time.
Yeah, they could not have been more generous with their time. Could not have been more gracious. They gave us so much more information than I think that we ever could have asked for. It really is sort of a masterclass on how to do this. I mean, I don't really foresee myself ever starting a music festival, but if you are a nerd, and I'm guessing that you are about these kind of things, since you're listening to this, it's going to be a masterclass on how this all gets put together, and includes tidbits of information and some breaking news too through the 2 parts. And hopefully you like it, because there's a ton in here to talk about. And so here's what's going to happen. It's going to be a 2-parter. But if you are a Patreon, if you want to sign up to be a Patreon, thewhatpodcast.com, the Patrons are going to get the video in its entirety right now. If you are not a Patreon, we still appreciate you listening, but it's going to be a 2-parter. We'll release the next episode next week.
And once these come out, we're every week, right?
Every week.
The plan.
Every week until, I sleep in one morning.
Let me ask you, though, the things that we've talked about over the last 3 years, mostly confirmed by our conversation, or were there some real surprises to you? Or I felt like we're pretty close. What we've been saying over the years, there were a couple of things. I was surprised that it's just 2 guys.
I was about to say that.
Right now.
Yeah, it's where it starts from the AC Entertainment building in Knoxville. The fact that it's really 2 guys. Now, they will talk. Look, the thing that I took away first and foremost the most was that they're very humble. They're insanely humble, and I know that they really want to give the credit to a lot of other people, and that's just in their nature. They're gonna, say that management and artists are really great, and artists,
got lucky,
right? And they're gonna, say really great things about the audience, and all these things are true. And I'm sure they have a great team that really goes through and helps them with hip-hop where they probably don't know as much, or a certain genre. Not saying that they don't know anything about hip-hop, but I'm sure that they want to give the credit to a lot of people. But that is pretty surprising. If it was me, if it was you and me doing it, I wouldn't be giving credit to anybody. I did this. Yeah,
that and the year after year planning that goes into it. Like they said, they're a year and a half they will start out. So they're already working on next year.
Right.
And just to be, because you and I have been involved in planning events, and not to this level, but next level maybe. it almost seems like you have to start fresh every year, but they don't.
Right.
So they're already thinking 4 or 5 years out, even
Maybe.
with some of those big acts. Not this year, but
Well, I mean,
4 years. That was interesting.
Well, I mean, going back to a piece of news that I heard a few months ago, and that Coldplay was going to be out not only for this year but also in 2021 because of the way that they do their tour schedule. Now it definitely came true in 2020, but I don't know if it's going to work out in 2021. What I think that you can probably do a lot easier at this point right now is probably start marking people off of the list. And what I found to be so refreshing is when Steve started talking about how they have a idea what they want to do, but they can't predict the cycle. They can't predict who's going to be big. They really have to go with their gut. And I asked a specific question because I really do wonder how much of this is, how much ROI they can get, return on investment, how much of it's data driven. And, they acknowledge that some of it because they've got to sell tickets and make money. But the part where I think I'm most surprised is how much gut really plays into all of this. They know what the festival is, and they know what the feeling is supposed to be, that they can see a band, feel it, hear it, and then know exactly where it's going to be for the rest of the festival.
You got some great information, especially out of Steven, talking about the data. They definitely look at the data, but the other thing that stands out is the night before that lineup dropped.
Yeah.
And the week leading up, his wife is like, "This is really good."
Yeah, and his response is, he's like, "I don't know if this is very good."
The night before, he's like, "Is this going to be good or not?"
You're going to enjoy this a lot. If you're a Patreon, we appreciate you. Man, we can't thank you enough. You get to see the whole thing in its entirety right now. For those that are not a Patreon, sign up if you want to. thewhatpodcast.com. Enjoy it. Our conversation with Steve, Ted, and Bryan from AC Entertainment, the guys that put together the 2020 Bonnaroo lineup. Enjoy. This is one of the great honors in the history of the What Podcast. I can't believe that we're doing this outside of being inside a radio studio or at Camp Nut Butter. We very rarely take this show on the road, and I can't believe we've been invited to sit down inside the building where it all happens with the people that literally craft your Bonnaroo experience and create the feeling that you have every single year. I can't believe we're here, Barry.
I'm pretty excited about it. One of the things that I think we try to do that separates us maybe from some other shows is try to go to the source. And that's literally what we've done today. We got in the car and drove to Knoxville. We got Steven.
Yep. Ted. Bryan.
How you doing?
Those are his first names. Yeah. We don't want to get Googled.
Sorry for that long pause. That was dramatic effect for no reason whatsoever. I know who you are. But we're in AC Entertainment offices. You guys, Steven and Bryan are the guys that booked this lineup that we are all so excited about. I guess, Ted, you were telling me a little bit earlier in the week. Tickets are doing well, right? It's not just us that's excited.
It's been a great year so far.
Yeah, and so we want to talk today about how it's put together, how it's changed. Why this year? What's different about this year? Those sorts of things, and we are so thankful that you guys are willing to let us look behind the curtain, so to speak. I guess, right? I mean, that's.
Yeah, because this is a really hard thing to do. It's a very difficult thing, and I'm sure it started so long ago, and you get to see it on paper be delivered like a week and a half ago. I can't imagine what that feeling is like when you finally get to hit enter or send on an email. Done. I'm absolutely done with it. I guess, how long ago did it start putting what happened on paper and in our eyes and on our phone? When did that start? When did that process start for 2020?
The process, it's changed over the years. It didn't used to be really as long of a process as it is now. But I'd say we work on the lineup for probably, it's close to a year and a half, basically. So we will start booking the next year's Bonnaroo well before Bonnaroo actually plays through. So, for example, Bonnaroo 2019 in June, we will have started on the 2020 lineup well before that.
Right.
And in fact, we're already
we're
conceiving
already
and
about
getting to work on 2021 right now. So
I think and one of the things I think we want to do for people listening is ask and then answer those questions that everyone else out there has. And that was one of them I think you had asked Jeff Cuellar was, are there negotiations, maybe we can't get you this year, but next year we'll be touring, is it, and that kind of thing. So that's interesting to hear you say a year and a half. That's pretty crazy to think you're already moving pieces. When you start talking to an act for a year and a half later, how does that impact the overall lineup? I think that's one of the questions everybody has. First of all, I think people think you come to the table with a list, your wish list, and then you just go get them, as if it's that easy. It's not that easy, right?
no, it's not. It does not work that way at all. Obviously, there's lots of factors that play into whether or not ultimately ends up on the lineup or not. And we can talk about some of those if you'd like. But it's an intense process. It's one that is it's a daily process for Steve and I going through it. We get thrown curveballs all the time. In terms of booking far out, I think if we could book this thing, the closer to the lineup announcement we could actually book all the bands, the better, right? Because the more information we have about what is out there that's happening, that's hot, that's exciting in that moment, the further out you are, it's so hard to project ahead. I don't know really what the next great, jam or hip hop or electronic act is going to be in June of 2021. I don't know that yet, right?
You don't even know what the cycle's going to be like.
I don't.
A year and a half from now.
But there are some givens there, right, that we know that are usually the artists that are going to be near or at the top of your lineup every year that we can start to work on. And in fact, a lot of those acts, some of the bigger named acts that you see play Bonnaroo, sometimes we have to work on that years out, if not 5-6 years out. Some of these, some of the biggest artists that have ever played the lineup, those are manifestations of conversations that we've had for 5, 6, 7 years in regards to planting the seeds, going and taking meetings with artists themselves and their managers and their agents and their representatives, asking them to come. And this was true, especially in the early days of the festival. We would ask people to come, because we firmly believe there's nothing like this event. Not obviously not in the country, but really in the world. I mean, this festival there's nothing like Bonnaroo, and so we would ask artists and agents and managers and representatives just come see it, come see it for yourself, come experience it, come understand it, come see the production, come see the stages, come see the fans, because that's the number one thing. That's our number one selling point to artists, is we have the best audience in the country.
Because I'm betting early on when you said come to Manchester, Tennessee in June, you got a lot of, why in the world would I want to go sweat my rear end off? So that's what you had to kind of prove to them, that it's worth it.
That definitely happened on a number of occasions,
right.
and a lot of times that would really set the stage for us to land an act, whether it be the next year or the following couple of years.
So it still happens. We do have some anecdotes of people being like, "Why should I come play this festival in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, in the middle of the summer?" And then you just you try to explain it, and you try to sell the story and tell the story.
It's amazing that people still need to be told the story. But to reset the table for a little bit, first off, when you guys go to put together whatever it is that you put together for, whether or not it's Big Ears or Bonnaroo, is it done in this room? Or is it done over your phones? Or is it done at a show? Where does it all come together?
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's constant. I mean, Bryan and I are constantly in communication about Bonnaroo. I'll be, for instance, you ask about like timeline and like when we book it and things like that. I mean, we in September had King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard play a show in Asheville outside. And I'd seen this band, listened to them. We've, talked about them for Bonnaroo. But when I went and experienced that show, I was there and I was like, this band has to play Bonnaroo this year, and it has to play. I'm giving something away here, but late night at Bonnaroo. Like, it's just a must for this year, and that was there. And I don't remember if I texted you or Slacked you or emailed you or something while it was happening. And so it's constant. It's constantly. It's in our offices, it's in this room, it's in Ashley's room, it's at dinner, it's at a show,
and
it's driving. We're out,
and it's going to be a certain time of day because it's just a feeling that you have, right? But where did that start? How long have you guys been in this building, crafting this experience, making my festival what it is? How long have you guys been doing it?
How long have we been doing it?
Yeah.
Individually? Individually?
Well, we've been in this building for only 2 years.
Physically here. Yeah,
we got promoted like 2 years ago out of the slums. And
that's true. Yeah. I mean, as far as like, when did we start? Our personal Bonnaroo story?
Each of you. How many years have you been booking it, I guess is.
Oh, well, when did we start? Like, Bryan and I...
Honestly, I have no idea.
I can't remember when we were brought into the booking process of Bonnaroo.
It's been... We've each been on the Bonnaroo booking team for over a decade. Yeah. Wow. So we've been a part of it in one way, shape, or form for... Yeah. It's probably been longer than that, really. Yeah. Honestly, I can't remember what year it was. Each of us started on the booking side.
So when you say the booking team, how many people does that encompass?
That's a good question.
Yeah, and it's changed over the years.
Exactly. That's why it's a tricky one. The festival for a long time was booked by actually a committee of folks that Steve and I were a large part of. We had obviously our colleagues at Superfly, and they were very much a part of that process as well. And they would have folks from their side, and we would join together. Each team would come with ideas, and we would collaborate, and that would be a couple of times a week sort of a process that would, somehow, some way, even some years we don't even understand how we did it, but it would spit out a somewhat coherent, if not incoherent lineup. Yeah. And obviously that's not how it's done anymore because, Superfly not being involved. But, just to speak to recent history, the last 2 years have been essentially Steve and myself calling shots and making the moves.
Yeah. So, and then real quick though, we got to throw this out there. Bobby Clay from C3, he does the programming for the other stage, which we launched how many years ago? I can't remember now.
4 years, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the mastermind behind the EDM stage. You know.
Now I know each lineup is sort of like a child for you, but I'm guessing you're insanely proud this year.
Well, we're proud of every year, but especially this year. I'm really happy with how it came together. Obviously, we've been elated to see the response from the fans, the community, the press. Everybody's really kind of rallied around this one, and I just think it speaks to the overall balance of the bill, and that is obviously what we strive for every year. Right. We want a really balanced lineup. We want people to feel like there's all kinds of different music showcase. We want people to feel like I can only see this lineup on the farm in Manchester. Right. And that really is, it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on.
See, that's one of the things that we have sort of honed in on and talk about all the time is there are certain bands that you can just see in your head on the wet stage at 3 in the afternoon or at 3 in the morning. Yep. My Morning Jacket is a perfect Bonnaroo act. There's just some of those that when we hear them even on the radio, your brain could just picture them there. So it's interesting to hear you say that. And this is an obvious question, but it's one that we talk about, and I want to hear from you guys. What is the simple mission? I mean, from management's point of view, when they say go book the bands, is there something they tell you in particular, or is there just something you now know? It's sort of related to that. There are Bonnaroo bands, and I'm assuming that means there are some that aren't. You know what I mean? So what's the basic mission?
Well, yeah, it's hard to answer. First of all, I'll say that from a management perspective, and I think this is a real credit to how Bonnaroo's structured and set up. Steve and I pretty much have creative freedom to book this thing the way we feel like we need to book it, and that really enables us to put together the best lineup that we possibly can with little to no restrictions, really. And that's a great place to be. In terms of a mission, it's hard to put into words. Yeah. I'll only say that, because we have been a part of the planning and booking process for the lineups of this festival for over a decade, probably 12, 13, 14 years, we just kind of know what it is that we want or that we're trying to do out there. And, every year the lineup takes on a life of its own, and it's just kind of how it should go, and it kind of all depends on who we think we're going to end up with, usually at the top. That a lot of that, the headliners do in some ways dictate the undercard.
Really?
Because if we're going to say Tool is going to be an anchor of our festival this year, and we don't have any other bands on the bill that Tool fans want to see, then we're not booking properly, and we're not putting together the best lineup that we possibly can, and really catering to the audience of the headliners. It's not all done that way, but we definitely think about things like that a lot.
So how much of that is data driven versus your heart or your head? It's a head versus heart argument, right? So how much are you looking at data and maybe where it's succeeding somewhere else, or how much is I just saw this show and I've got to have this on the farm?
It's both. I mean, we look at data for sure, but we also follow our hearts, because if you just look at raw data, there's acts out there that are way bigger than the acts at the top of our festival, but don't necessarily make sense at Bonnaroo.
Fit that overall
Bingo.
mission.
Yeah. So, Lizzo's numbers are insane this year, but when we first started talking about Lizzo, we were kind of, she was big, but we were taking a bit of a leap of faith, and a big part of that was based on our gut and our heart, and looking at this act and being like, could there be a better Saturday night main stage headliner this year than Lizzo, on Bonnaroo?
Well, you took a gamble and it worked, because there's nobody more of the zeitgeist and more of what I think the Bonnaroo mission is from afar than what Lizzo is. And at what point did that change, where you said, well, we'd like to have her, but then all of a sudden became, no, she needs to headline?
I don't know what exactly at what point. I think that, in terms of when we were discussing booking her for 2020, it was almost always in that sort of headline area.
That's true.
And we could see where it was going, and obviously, we kind of had a feeling that, if we did headline her and she was going to be at the top of the poster come January, that was going to be a pretty smart move. Yeah. And turns out, I think we were right.
I'm just fascinated as to when that happened. Was that October or September? It's one of those things, because you had to really foresee something big happening. And the only reason I say that is because, I don't mean to do this, but I know Barry is going to kill me. This is a lineup built all for Brad, because there are landmines of me patting myself on the back way too much in this lineup. But Lizzo, I was lucky enough to be the first person to ever play her on the radio, and I found her on this blog, right? And this was last October, and she loved it so much that she repaid us by coming to play a show just in Chattanooga for free, and that was in May. And in May, she already had her management telling me that they were going to be doing arenas by the end of the tour. So if they foresaw it, I wonder how much of the conversation then changed when she was going to be booking all of 2020. So a year and a half out, she was already saying, no, we know exactly where this is going. And I wonder how much of the conversation that was with you guys.
Well, if I could just jump in for a second, I think Benson actually booked Lizzo first on one of our festivals in like 13 or 14.
Yes, it was 2016.
Was it 2016?
I don't remember the year she played.
It was just a long time ago.
You're talking about when she played Forecastle,
She
yeah.
played Forecastle, and it was the first festival that Lizzo played in the United States.
Yeah.
So when I think one of the things for Bonnaroo fans to really understand is that Steve and Bryan have decades plus experience booking, and it's not just on Bonnaroo. We do
Right.
8 or 9 festivals this year. It's kind of hard to keep track of it.
Right.
We're booking in general between festivals and shows over 1,000 shows a year. So you get in deep and start to develop these relationships with managers and agents and artists, and then it just becomes part of your DNA.
Right.
And kind of like what you do with your life is like be a part of this, and then all of it just starts. It's like you're in the Tennessee River and you're just kind of going in a direction with the entire, like all of these people. So really, when I think about what these guys did incredibly getting Lizzo on Bonnaroo as a headliner, which I think is a big moment beyond just the music, it really started at the beginning because of the relationship that we had with Lizzo's manager and agent and giving her a chance on this other festival. And that's really what it takes. Like with all the artists, like everyone doesn't have a story like that.
Right.
But many of these stories start at the beginning or start with what Bryan was saying 5 or 6 years ago with, hey, we really think this would be an important look for your career at some point to come headline Bonnaroo. Let's start the conversation and see what that looks like.
Along those lines, I'll go ahead and ask the question because people out there are going to be wondering. She's the first female headliner. Is that, like when Brad mentioned that to me last year, I mean, I've been involved in this thing since the beginning too. It's like, really? Was that how it kind of was for you guys? I mean, I don't think it was an intentional thing. Was it just you're 18 years down the road and wow, we haven't had a female headliner? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how did that happen, I guess?
Yeah, I'd say, certainly, reaction-wise, that was part of it. But, it's obviously, she's the perfect fit for us this year. And we're elated that she's the first one to top the list there, for sure.
Yeah. Even looking at it, like, it's like, okay, well, that seems weird. But then you think, well, all right, who should it have been or could it have been going back? And you booked the best acts available, right?
We booked the best acts available, and first female headliner, sure. First attempt at a female headliner, definitely not.
Right.
And so I think that it's obviously booking a festival is, like we kind of alluded to at the beginning, it's a process. It's literally it's putting together a big puzzle, and there are lots of reasons that acts do or do not end up on the bill. And this is this is the first time that happened.
So when it comes to where artists are put on the lineup, do you guys specifically know where they're going to fit, what slot they're going to be on the poster / the schedule? When you say, yeah, Lizzo could definitely be a headliner, but so could Miley. Was there a conversation of, well, let's flip those? Or did you know all the time, the whole time, that this certain artist was going to fit this certain slot?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we know. That's how we book the festival. And that's an interesting question. And we slot artists as we book the event, and we do it that way because we are very sensitive to conflict in the schedule, and we do everything we can to limit those as much as possible. Whenever you have a festival that has multiple stages that are running congruently or up against one another, especially the size of Bonnaroo, where you have 5, 6, 7, 8 stages going at once, there's gonna be conflicts. There's conflicts that we don't think are conflicts that then the fans tell us are conflicts, and then we're like, oh, we didn't think that was going to be a conflict. But, a conflict could be, 10 people just happen to like these two bands that are way different, or it could be like, oh, we really blew that one, so, but yes, we slot artists as we book.
How much wiggle room do you have when it comes to, if you already book with the schedule in mind, how much wiggle room do you have either with the artist or with your own sort of, because I can understand if somebody all of a sudden blows up in a way that you didn't really see it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we got him on this tent at a time that's really not very comfortable for us.
Well, those conversations happen. They're rare, but they do happen. We've run into that in the past. I think the first time we ever booked Mumford, I remember, it was kind of this thing that just kind of happened over. I mean, they exploded so quickly, and we had them on Bonnaroo that year. And when we confirmed them to when the festival actually happened, it was a rocket ship. Yeah. And I remember having to make some adjustments there. Really? And those are tough conversations because every artist is slotted at this point. So to have to make adjustments on the fly because of an artist getting a lot bigger, then you have to go have some tough conversations with some of the other artists, but we work through it.
Yeah. Right. And during the and that's now, but the process is fluid, like while we're booking it, because things ebb and flow. Artists that we thought we were going to have fall out. Artists that we didn't think we were going to have rear their heads, and we're like, oh, we really want that. So, we may have something slotted in a particular place in October, and then it makes more sense, or it's more exciting, or whatever, to move it to a different place by November. We do that, and it's a constant conversation with the artists and their camps.
And most of the time they're okay with it?
Most of the time, but we rarely are doing something that's going to have a negative effect on any of the artists. Like if we're moving something, it's rare, like Bryan said, that it's because we booked, I think Phoenix was another one that we booked on like what we used to call the cafe stages, like Who stage now. And then it was like, oh, we should probably move them to a tent, that same year. It's rare that that's happening, or the Mumford story is happening. It's more about flow and the festival experience. Right. So generally speaking, when we're going back to somebody and being like, hey, we think we would like to move your act to this new position, it's not just because there's like a good reason for it. And, if we believe in it, then generally we can, convince the artists and their teams that it makes sense.
Yeah, and hopefully by this point, there aren't any changes. That would be ideal. Yeah. But throughout the process, the way our grid looks changes every day, and it's just a matter of, an agent calls and says, hey, we can only play on Sunday now.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got to move some things. So this is constantly happening. Or we have an artist slotted in a slot and it's an offer that isn't yet confirmed, and then they don't confirm. And so that opens up a spot, and then we have a new decision to make. And this is really where, I can't stress enough how much fun we have doing this together, because it's really, when you get down to it, it's we really do it like if we have a slot open on Friday in a tent, we really look at, all right, what do we have that's confirmed in this slot on the other stages? What do we need there? What could we put there that is going to fit, with the mix of other artists that are going to be playing at that time, and that's really where we have a lot of fun with it. And that's really where we get to play curator, and really place creative. Hey, what would be really cool? Oh, what if, and this is where we get together. What if we did this right there? Let's reach out and let's see if that act's available. And this is where we really get to, piece together the bill.
It's a three-dimensional Spotify playlist, really.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and the biggest challenge is, or one of the biggest challenges is, it's almost like the blessing and the curse, right? We're blessed with the fact that we are lucky enough to get to book one of the best festivals in the world that almost every artist in the world wants to play. The curse side of it is that every artist in the world wants to play it, and we only have 100 and whatever slots that we have.
Are you getting calls now saying, "Hey, can we get on today?"
Well, it's calmed down a little bit at this point, but you might imagine the intensity level from, say, July to January.
Yeah, I bet there is a level though that if I don't know, just say Jay-Z called up, you're like, we might be able to slot you in. We might be able to fit you in.
And I'm not.
We got a spot.
We got a spot.
Yeah, we always have a spot for Jay-Z.
I don't say that
right now.
I don't say that complaining at all. I'm just saying we have a lot of options, and it can be a little daunting sometimes to say what's the right choice, because a lot of times we're choosing between a bunch of artists that we want them all on.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here thinking about some of the things that can affect, like what you're just talking about, an artist. Like, I'm sure when you're talking to management, they're saying we're going to do an album that'll drop in 10 months or 12 months, and that might impact radio play and their popularity. But things like, and I keep thinking, the rumor that we had heard is like Macklemore that second year had a new album, thought it was going to do well, it didn't do as well. And so the show wasn't as good as the one before. It's maybe one of the negatives. But then you get, and who saw it coming? The St. Paul and the Broken Bones goes on Letterman, and Letterman just goes gaga over them. Has to rise on up there. So those sort of things that you can't see coming, right? You just sort of have to adapt, and those are good things, right? I mean, you didn't know when you started booking Lizzo that she was going to have 8 Grammy nominations, I would assume, but that's a good thing, right? So all those kind of things, you kind of got to be fluid, and that's why I guess the idea of you booking a year and a half out or more, that's just fascinating to me that you could try doing that. Some of them, like you said, like a Tool, are going to be. And
that's a big part of it is that it's like those huge acts, because that's their, that's how far out they plan. So a lot of the undercard is still like that's booked later. But those big ones it's driven.
Now, about the undercard, how many of the undercard, and you don't have to tell me a number, you don't even have to answer if you don't want to, but how much of the undercard comes along with some of the bands you've booked at the top?
Meaning, like...
Yeah, like, hey, can you help us out with this? Can you, if we give you insert artists here, can we throw in a couple to help us out?
Yeah, we just don't really do it that way.
Okay.
It's, if we're excited about an act and we think they fit the festival, we try to book them. Yep. I mean, it's really. I mean,
has there ever been a band?
I don't mean to oversimplify it.
That's actually true. Like we don't like it. The package deal is not.
But there's never been a band that you booked that. We didn't really listen to them. We sort of put them on there. That would be kind of funny. Like, we have a slot. Let's just throw them a bone.
Honestly. And I'm being very sincere here. No,
that's awesome.
No. We
somebody has listened to him.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Somebody in the building.
It.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to ask.
That's why we have Bobby on the other stage.
Yeah, sure.
Again, you can answer how you want to, but and forgive me, there was alcohol involved at Moon River when I suggested that you get Dolly Parton.
I thought you were going to talk about Camp Nut Butter as soon as you said alcohol.
Well,
I don't know what Camp Nut Butter is.
That's
by the way. Okay.
We want you to come back this year. You can.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, sure.
And I bet you get this. You guys get this all the time. Somebody comes and says, "I know who you should book."
That never happens, Barry.
Dolly is one of those, and I'm using her just because she's on top of everybody's list. Such an obvious one, right? I'm sure you get people say, "Why haven't you booked her?" As if you haven't booked
It's
her.
that easy, right?
Remember when Bryan said earlier that Lizzo's the first headliner, but not the first that we've tried?
Right. Probably an every year thing, right? I'm asking
mini.
because she's maybe a good example for somebody out there who doesn't understand how these things are booked, right? You are trying. There's lots of things that happen, from whether she just wants to, the money, the timing, right? I mean, what are the sorts of things that you are up against when you want to go after somebody you want?
Oh, it could be a bunch of things, Barry. The date doesn't work, not working in that time frame, not the right time for their career, not on cycle.
They have to want to do it.
You have to want to do it. Don't
that's a big
the money, or our financial offer doesn't match their expectation, or we just don't have the right slaughter position for them in that moment. I mean, there's, and I could go on and on. Yeah. So many things have to go right for a booking to happen, especially when you're talking about the top 10 to 12 artists on the bill. And it's just, again, it's a long process that Steve and I go through, and again, we want to make sure that it's as balanced as possible, and that's kind of how we do it.
And all that being said, we would love to have Dolly out there.
Right.
We'll probably
building the 2021
we'll probably
line of
try.
Jay-Z and Dolly.
We'll
That's
probably
to
try
start.
again next year. So
I think one thing to note, and this is one of the things I wanted to make sure to mention. Going back to your question about data, we do look at a lot of data, but that's across the board. This is what we do for a living. We book bands, not only at festivals, but we book, regular shows as well. And we're looking at a lot of data. We have conversations with our marketing team and our data team a lot about the numbers and what the fans are excited about. And this is one of the main points I wanted to make. We look at the survey and the poll results a lot. So if you fill out a post-festival survey, if you attend Bonnaroo and you fill out that survey about who you want to see in 2021, that is actually getting to the bookers of the festival, and we actually are looking at that. We're taking that data into account, and we're looking at it very carefully. Yep. And it's one of the things, like, obviously Tame Impala has been one of the most requested artists for the festival for years, but they were ostensibly the number one most requested artist to play Bonnaroo in 2020.
Yeah.
No kidding.
We would have probably booked them regardless, but that was important to know.
Right.
King Gizzard, going back to Steve's comment about having seen them in Asheville, but we also knew, because the Bonnaroo fans told us they wanted to see them play out there. And
has the Bonnaroo audience turned you on to a band that you didn't know before, that you then went to see and said, "Man, this was something I didn't know until they were told to me"?
Probably. I mean, I would say I can't think of any specific examples, but there's probably something we've seen in there,
things that we've thought, things that we've maybe had heard but never delved as deeply into or put together. I mean, because it's not just like the surveys and things like that, but we look at the socials, the Reddit, like all of that stuff. Like we're listening to the fans.
I would say it's less of been turned on to something we didn't know, and maybe more of a we weren't maybe thinking that we were going to prioritize that act as much as we will now, because we know the Bonnaroo audience is really saying we really want to see him out here.
Do you feel that way, that specific to Bonnaroo, because the engagement and the audience is so active 360 days a year? Is that why it is? Because I can't think of another brand that has sort of a connection that is so right there along with their hand in hand with their audience.
Let me piggyback on that, because my next question was, is booking Bonnaroo different than others? Because one of the things we talk about is, because people are there and camping, it's a commitment kind of thing. It's a different audience from our point of view. They're willing to give an artist a lot more leeway. They're willing to go hear somebody they maybe never heard of, because it's that contained sort of thing. Does that come at all into what you guys do? Is it different booking Bonnaroo than any of the other things you guys do?
Yes.
Yeah. 100%.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And to go back to your question, the level of engagement from the audience is it's incredible, and it helps us. So I would just say, look, if you're watching or listening to this right now, please, we want the feedback, because we look at it, it gets to us, we see it, we take it into consideration as best we can, and we do. It really helps us craft the lineup every year.
See, this is why
it's not the only thing that we look at, but it is a data point that we have and that we see and that we take into consideration.
But see, this is why I think that the most successful brands in the world put their brand values up front, and then they show them to you, and then they actually live them on a very regular basis. The reason why we do this show is because we love the brand so much, we love the values so much, and if those things are, and I have no reason to doubt you because you've proved it, but when you say stuff like that and then you actually live it, that's showing how much your brand value means to the user. And if that's the case, the user experience becomes so much more authentic and real and connected to the overall festival. I mean, that's why we do this. That's why we do this show, and we that's why we engage on a 15-year level that we have, and
that's why we're sitting here with you, because we want to not be faceless necessarily, because we take a lot of pride in booking this event. We don't take it for granted, and we understand. I mean, it's a daunting task, really, and again, going back to the process, it's one that really almost never stops.
Right.
We never are not booking Bonnaroo in a way, right? Because even though we may not be making a ton of offers right now for 2021 because it's so far out, but we're always thinking about, I'll probably pop into Steve's office after this in an hour and go, oh, I just had an idea for and that's the constant dialogue that we have, and we're always thinking about what are we going to do next.
I want to go back to what Barry asked before, because I don't think you guys ever really answered it, but he was talking about what's the mission. Just kind of from the 30,000 foot view, because I'm not doing any of the heavy lifting.
You're the mission guy.
Yeah, maybe I'm the mission guy. But I think what's important is that from just this conversation, it's the relationship between the booking, what we do with marketing, what we do with experience, what we do with our partners at C3 to really set the stage. So this is amazing for everybody. But then these two guys have to go out there and really live it. And they're not just trying to put together a relationship that at the end of the day sells tickets. They're looking in the mirror and just want to be super proud of what they've done, because it's almost like you're married to the Bonnaroo fans. Like, there's a relationship there. It's very different from a lot of other things. So these two guys are doing like tons of work all year long with an expectation, not just to put it out there, but how the fans and how people who are Bonnaroovians are going to respond to it, and really trying to create something that they're going to delight in, not just like and buy tickets to, but just be so psyched that this 4-day festival is like the highlight of the year.
I love how you just said it's like a marriage, because if you're married, you have to make your partner happy damn near every day.
Yeah, right? or just like a deep relationship.
And this ties into what I think you were asking a second ago too, about like who's on the bill and like how is it different from booking other festivals, because we book at a bunch of other festivals, but like marriage, you want to make your partner happy most all the time. That starts at when you get up in the morning, when you go to bed at night. At Bonnaroo, it starts with the first band that plays on a tent and the first act that finishes at 4 a.m.
When you buy your ticket. And that's one of the things we've learned over talking about this now for 3 years is how important the total experience. We laugh. Moon River, leaving, was it 2 years ago, seeing Quayar in the banana outfit. Seems like such a silly, minor thing, but you leave there with a smile on your face because that guy had a banana costume on. Those sorts of little things.
Yeah. Holcomb was in a banana, I think, costume.
Yeah, Drew was.
It was amazing.
And
it's great.
The mission thing, I was thinking, and I wanted to ask how the fan experience and the development of the farm impacts what you guys do. You know, we still 20 years later here, it was a jam band. You guys jam fest. You ruined it. You changed it. You know, we understand having the bathrooms, the showers, the grass, the trees, the experiences out in the plaza.
The plazas you now have to book now.
But again, that's like, this is really important because we live and breathe these stages and the bands on the poster and things like that. But that's not all Bonnaroo is. It's the experience. And the plazas, like, our friends at C3 do the programming, majority of the programming at the plazas. And those plazas, have changed the experience completely. Or Where in the Woods, or all these new things that make it not just about the bands on the stage. It's all a big, huge experience from start to finish. That's a really... Yeah, please.
That changes who you're now marketing to, right? That's
absolutely.
Thinking about, who could play there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, of course. It all fits together. And, who, like, Sunday morning on a stage, what do you want to see after you've maybe been up till 4 o'clock in the morning dancing at Where in the Woods? It all sort of bleeds together. And like, what do we have on Sunday morning? I don't remember right now, but like, it all like fits together as a whole.
Sunday at 1 on the What stage, I really want to go to church every year. The days of like the Mavis Staples and the Sharon Jones and the Charles Bradley. Oh, I miss that slot so much. I really do.
When the lineup came out, we were all stunned, and it was Miley Cyrus. The lineup was so strong. Seeing Miley on there,
we got to throw a wild card in there every year,
right?
Like, who gets to take credit for that? Because it was genius.
I don't know.
We all.
I was just like, from my perspective, I think that Miley gets and her team gets a lot of the credit because this, is just an example of an artist that really has some incredible vision, and I think, let's take it back because it all ties together. It takes it back to the Bonnaroo fans and how they're perceived, not just by our relationship with them, but by artists around the world as the number one music fans who are tastemakers, who can create trends, and who can really set the stage for a career to take a different path. And I think Miley wanted more than anything, without speaking to her, to get in front of this audience and experience what they're like and take it, just take it to them. That's
a interesting. I've got two questions about Miley. One not necessarily about Miley, but when she's going to be on some other festival lineups. Indirect question: do you guys look at other festival lineups around the country? You know what's coming, and you say, they're doing everything. That doesn't really where we want to go. And then secondly, about Miley specifically, you think that she has a little bit more of a want to for Bonnaroo and prove something on the Bonnaroo stage because it's hometown? Do you think that she's an hour away from her house and has got some friends that she wants to bring? She wants to bring a different level of show maybe for Bonnaroo because it's so close to home?
She definitely wanted to play the festival. I don't want to speculate on her motives because I don't know the answer to that, but I can imagine it's going to be a high level show from her at Bonnaroo. Given the hometown vibe and ties. But yeah, I think, again, it goes back to something that Ted said earlier, artists, we like artists that want to play, we like artists that want to be at Bonnaroo, and that's not always the case, believe it or not. And that's okay. But the ones that really embrace what we're trying to do as a festival, what we're trying to deliver to the fan base, what the fans expect, those are the ones that really excel and do really well at the event.
And to jump back to your first question about Miley and she's playing other festivals. Right. Yes. We do pay attention to who's playing other festivals. We can't control it, and we don't always know. We do want to have our own identity, but we don't let that drive the programming completely. But again, the interesting thing about Bonnaroo is, Miley Cyrus is on a lot of different festival lineups this year, but it's going to be a totally different experience, the way we present her at Bonnaroo than the way she's presented at most other festivals.
When you guys
it just looks different. The experience is different. I think the fan reaction will be different.
Yeah, you just I wonder. I circle back and I wonder if there's ever a time where you see a band that's just doing everything, and you're like, that's just, we don't want to be just another festival that you play. Anyway, but to a different point, when you guys book Insert Miley, or I'll put it this way, I was having a conversation with Evan down the hall. I think that, and I don't know if this was on purpose, but I think your headliners alone are going to bring maybe the best 3 stage shows that you have ever had as a headliner, right? These are stage shows first, and it's not necessarily a recorded album. You may or may not like Lizzo or Tool, but the stage show that they bring is unbelievable, especially the Tame Impala thing, if you saw the show after LCD Sound System a couple years ago. But I don't remember a headliner, a top 3, that have had this level of stage show back to back to back. Post Malone's fine, but it's not a stage show like Tool's going to be. Is that in the mind? Is that in the back of the mind at all?
Yeah, I think it is somewhat. We're
because I wonder how much production
yeah,
costs or production in general plays into the overall booking process.
I don't know. It doesn't really, not for me. What do you think?
I mean,
right? One of my favorite shows of the past recent memory of Bonnaroo was Sturgill.
Right.
My God, that show was so good.
White
lights and 4 guys on a stage.
That's it.
Exactly.
No video,
Yep.
no moving lights, nothing,
Yep.
and heading from dusk till dark on the main stage at Bonnaroo, and with no production, and just shredded.
Yeah.
And so, it doesn't
Exactly. Right. Right.
It's all about the musicianship and the live music aspect of it, and that's definitely where we tend to go at Bonnaroo.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
One of the things that I've said since we started doing this, and I don't think it's overstating, Bonnaroo reintroduced live music to fans.
And obviously we understand the criticism of jam band roots. That's where we started. We've certainly evolved, right, over the years. We had to, and we will continue to evolve. But I'd say one thing that always kind of goes back to those roots is that
the
live show, high level musicianship, and that doesn't mean it has to be a jam band, right? It's but it's just, and to me, if you look at the undercard this year, we so much of what we do still is rooted in that. When
how many shows you guys think you see a year?
I don't know. I mean, it's what we do.
Are you 5 a week? Are you a 5 a week? Kind of
well, with young children, not we can't.
Years ago,
we send the young staff out for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we see a lot of shows. We still see a ton of shows.
You must
Yeah.
really trust your staff, because you can't see every person that you've booked. You probably have not seen every
live. No.
But I think of somebody like Yola, who I think is like your secret weapon this year, who's going, I mean, she's got a Grammy nomination for crying out loud, and how you found her when you booked her, I don't know, but I have a feeling it's a Dan Arbach connection. But I love that album, and I love her so much, but I don't know what she's going to be live, and I don't know if anybody's seen her live. But
and this is where Steve, I don't know, not to toot any horns, but Steve and I have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
I was turned on to Yola, let's call it a year and a half ago. It could have been a little less, but let's say it's about that. And kind of knew the connection with Massive Attack and her history. And then I listened. I got a couple of songs before the record came out. And again, this is where we have, just being who we are in the professionals and being in the business, we get turned on to things before they're really out there. Yeah. And I just remember listening to the first couple of tracks that I heard, and you just know that is going to be a thing,
and he did. I mean,
so we jumped on it. We booked her. I think the first event we had her on was our inaugural Railbird Festival in Lexington, Kentucky last year, and she opened one of the stages. And since then, obviously her career has really taken off, but we knew, we really need to get her on Bonnaroo. But so much about an artist like that is it's timing really plays into a huge part of it, right? Because it's important. I don't know what kind of cycle we're on. There's so many bands to book in any given year. And really, if you think about it, like if you're an artist that's breaking, what's the opportunity that you have at Bonnaroo? It's really, you almost have like one shot at it, right? Because if we book you and it isn't the right time in your career, or we don't, or it's not the right slot or look or whatever it may be, then the opportunity to come back is, 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, 3? It depends on the artist and what happens in their career, but we're not really repeating an artist very regularly.
But
it's
the
hard.
Ones that you do, but the ones that you do, like you guys can go through and probably really take some pride in the amount of artists that you think you probably broke.
Started small.
Sure.
I mean, I can go off the list here. I mean, I think you broke the Alabama Shakes. I think you broke the Black Keys. Banks, put her on a look that she hasn't had since. So
I don't know that we're breaking any. Like, I'm just like, I hear that and I feel like I
don't know that that's the right word.
We're giving them the opportunity with a great look, with a great really music head audience, but I don't know that we're breaking anybody.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's more, especially in the southeastern region, it's like it's very valuable to help build awareness, and we've definitely, like, that's not lost on us or anyone else, but break is not the right word. But we've also been, I think a lot of that also speaks to just being like engaged and being like, I was actually I did an interview with the LA Times last week about Tame Impala, because they're doing a Tame Impala, and we've had Tame Impala on the festival 3 times, starting with a tent on a Sunday at 6 p.m. That was in 2013, I believe, when the second record was just kind of breaking. They came back in 2016 and did the late night set on Second Stage, which you referenced earlier, and now they're headlining. So we didn't break Tame Impala, but we knew that Tame Impala was a great band, and we,
but I bet there are a bunch of artists that really, really thank you a lot.
We provide an opportunity. But I think one of there's a couple of things you're missing though, right? Because we're just one part of it. Because we book a band and give them an opportunity at Bonnaroo, that isn't the end of the story, right? To me, there's 2 other huge factors there. One, the artist still has to come out and perform and put on an amazing show. But then the number one thing, the reason why we get so excited to book the undercard and the early slots at Bonnaroo is because it doesn't matter if we book a band early in a 10 or on the Who stage or whatever, if nobody shows up to see them. And that's why Bonnaroo is the best festival in the world, because our audience shows up to every show, because it gives us the confidence, as it really allows us to be curators and taste makers and say, hey, we really think you are going to be turned on by this. We're going to put it on Bonnaroo because we have the confidence that the audience, they're showing up and they're going to go see that act. And then it's on the audience and the artist, whether or not that act breaks or not. It's not really, I mean, we're setting the stage, but it's not, we're not breaking anyone really. I don't know if that's the right word. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. To me, it's like Lizzo. Like, Lizzo is breaking and blowing up regardless of her Bonnaroo performance. I think we enhance and maybe accelerate it with like a lot of media exposure. But to what Bryan was saying earlier, I think one of the real challenges is the blessing and the curse. Everybody wants to play it. Well, that means if there's pressure coming from the artist, the pressure goes to the agent and the manager, like, hey, this is really important to us, regardless of if it's the right play that year. Like what these guys are saying, Steve and Bryan, do a great job of, you only break once. You only get like one shot to hit the Bonnaroo tent, and really set it on fire. And a lot of times the artist and the manager and the agent are just responding from pressure, and everybody wants to do it, and it doesn't mean it's not the right time, but it goes back to the artist and the manager really is where it starts. It starts with the art and having an idea of the timing of presenting themselves in this format on this festival. And it's really like, once you get on the other side of the curtain, a lot of times it's no surprise that certain artists become successful, because all of these little decisions add up to success. When am I going to break at Bonnaroo? When am I going to play Lollapalooza ACL? Like, when is that look going to be? I want to wait and make sure that when I do it, it explodes. Not when I do it, it's a little bit of a bump.
Right.
And I think on our side, with what Steve and Bryan are doing, they are like driving the ship in some ways and reaching out, but in a lot of ways they're responding to who's reaching out to them. And their job is to figure out where the breaking moments are and to really try to find that for the year that's a year and a half out. But a lot of it, like the curse part, is coming from that pressure. Like, everybody wants to do it because everyone thinks this will be the silver bullet that will take my career from here to here. But that's not the case unless you're ready to go.
Have you ever said no to somebody who wasn't ready?
Sure.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
the harsh reality is we say no a lot.
Right.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, we have to have some hard conversations year in, year out, and it all ties in really to what, a lot of times, to what Ted was saying. It's like, we get a lot of pressure, and sometimes it's not the right fit for us. Us being Bonnaroo, it's not the right timing for the artist, and a lot of times that's a hard, pill to swallow on the artist side. But sometimes it's interesting. There was an example this year. I'm not going to name names, but it was where we wanted them on the event, and they turned it down because they didn't think it was the right look for the artist. And we didn't necessarily see eye to eye on where it fit in, and so they were like, "Well, we're just going to wait," and totally respected that decision, and we'll probably have her on the festival next year. Okay,
But you said something
and a lot of it, just to piggyback on what Steve says, a lot of it is situational too, because where we are in the process sometimes dictates these decisions. Because if we're 80% of the way booked and we have an opportunity to put an artist on, but we don't have the exact right opportunity that they see is a fit for them on the festival, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So timing. Again, just going back to there are so many factors that play into why a band does or does not end up on the lineup. But just to put a bow on this, I don't know. It is pretty fun though to look back at past lineups and see. Avett Brothers played at Cafe Stage. Vampire Weekend played Thursday. Kings of Leon played at early first up.
Yeah, that's why I don't.
Alabama Shakes played at Cafe Stage. It is
bands in that teeny tiny print at the bottom of the poster.
It's amazing.
And sometimes you're like, oh man, do you remember that band? Sometimes you're like, oh shit, do you remember? Like, look at that. Look at what we did.
I mean, I think there's one where like the Black Keys are like the third to last on the lineup.
Right.
I think that's where I was trying to go. Is like, you got to take so much pride in the fact that these are artists that are major stars now, and you guys got to have them in these tiny spots and watch them grow. There's got to be an enormous amount of pride there. But to your point a couple of minutes ago when you said that you don't, did you say something like you try not to do back to back, or you try not to do multiple years? You give them a window of 3 to 4 years.
It's not a hard and fast rule. There's always fluidity there, right? Depending on an artist's trajectory and where they are in their career, it is very difficult for us to repeat year over year, much less 2 or 3 years, just because of the sheer amount of artists that are out there in any given booking cycle. There are obviously a tremendous amount more artists than there are slots we have at the festival, and therefore, obviously we're trying to present a fresh round of artists each year.
I go back to, and I don't want to go backwards, but the year that Dua Lipa did a Thursday night and then turned around and was damn near top of the lineup the next year. I mean, what conversation happened?
There's an exception to every rule,
Yeah.
But again, as a general rule, I mean, just look back. I mean, you don't see a lot of artists playing back-to-back years, much less every couple 2-3 years.
Because of you guys in Bonnaroo, my bucket list is very, very short now.
Not really even a bucket anymore.
I mean, there's a handful of guys that I would love to see.
It's like
Sure.
a shot glass now, Barry.
Yeah, it's not a bucket anymore. How about with you guys? How many artists are out there, Dolly, we've talked about, that you haven't been able to get that you really, really want to get?
There's definitely a good handful.
Yeah.
You do what you want. I'm gonna refrain from naming any names just because I like to keep
Except for Dolly.
Except for Dolly's. Yeah, I mean you can name them.
I already said Dolly.
Because you never know what we're working on. But there are definitely some. And there's some that we tried that unfortunately we won't ever have the opportunity to book now. I'm trying to think. To me the number one was Prince. And I think that that one, again, not for lack of trying. In fact, we came pretty close one time, and it just
pretty close.
Thought we had it.
Yep.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Didn't work out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I
wonder what in my world I understand what pretty close means, but I don't know in your world what pretty close means. Is pretty close, and this goes for any artist if they're pretty close. Is it a money thing? Is it a production thing? Is it
Works in hand? It's just not signed.
No, it's not. It wasn't that close. It was just I thought we were close to a confirmation. How about that? Yeah. And ultimately, for a number of different reasons, it didn't end up working. But
how many of those heartbreakers you have?
Happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens a lot. A couple, 2, 3, 5, depending on how many we go after a year.
Yeah.
Is it because in the success that you have, is it dependent? I mean, the word's not dependent, but how much of it is so because you have great relationships with management or booking agents, or when you have somebody that just needs a little bit more work, are you willing to go fly and talk to this booking agent or management team? How much of that legwork are you still doing at this point that you're probably doing a lot more 5-10 years ago?
We still do it. We definitely still do it. If we have our sights set on a particular act, we will do what we need to do to get it done, and that if that's fly or go see the band and go meet them backstage or whatever to tell the story. But you
never buy anybody a car. You never bought a car and tried to.
No. We're way too.
We will.
To do that.
We will buy a car.
Jay-Z, we got a car for you.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
You're definitely not above bribing.
Yeah, absolutely not. I was just gonna, and some of it happens because we have partners. We got a text this week about a potential add-on for 2020 was one of our partners out in LA. What do you think about this idea? Steve and Bryan are in there every single day thinking about this, and I think that's a huge part of why it matters. They've been doing it forever. They've got great institutional memory. They really know music, and that's what makes this whole thing go. But they could book the best lineup in the world, but if Jeff and the team don't deliver the experience on site, if Jacob and Ben don't hold up their end and do an excellent job marketing it, it's the touch points across the board with the artist liaisons, with the artist shuttle transport. It's really everything. It's creating a city for the weekend that then some of us, especially these two guys, are living to build for the next year, a year and a half out. And I think that's really what makes it all work, because when you're down there at Camp Nut Butter having a great time, you're having a great time because you don't have to think about all the things that aren't going the way that you would want them to go, because somebody's already thought through that and has made it the best experience possible for your camp for that year. And then each year we try to make everything better. So I think we can't lose sight of that. Sometimes, I'm not in the heavy booking with Bonnaroo, but I've got a booking background, and we all like to think, it's all booking. And listen, booking drives the show. If you don't have a great lineup, you're done. But everything else that comes with it is critical
Yeah, that's
to the Bonnaroo fan experience, and how they pull through the toll booths, and how long that takes, and how the search goes, and how friendly everybody is, and the food and the drinks and the pricing. There has just been a massive amount of thought that goes into all of it, and that's almost 20 years in. That's really what makes it work.
I have one more question.
Well, good. I have about 15.
I've always said if my favorite act is on the lineup, it's the best festival ever. And if they're not on there, it's not so good.
Who's your favorite act?
We've heard that before.
You can say who your favorite
You're
act
so millennial, Barry.
I was gonna say.
No, I mean, I say that usually as people who are criticizing a festival. It's a silly thing, but how do you guys? I mean, this lineup got kudos from the moment it dropped.
Yeah.
How do you guys define a good lineup? Whether you put together a good lineup?
Are we selling tickets? I mean, I think that's a pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I think that.
Because you said earlier you're proud of all of them. And
we are.
I'm
Sure.
You're
Yeah.
considering that, but some sell more tickets than others, and that's what I mean. You look at it and say, wow, that was a good lineup. Why didn't it do? And why is this one and not that one?
I mean, a lot of times, though, we can look back and see maybe on some of the ones that didn't do so well, where we didn't actually deliver the best lineup that we could have, or we did deliver the best lineup that we could have that year, but it just wasn't, because I mean, so much of it is just timing and things like that. I don't know. I mean, before, like the day before we released this lineup, Bryan and I have been working on this for well over a year, and we were talking. We were like, what do you think? And we're both just kind of like, wow, I don't know, man.
We'll see.
Because we've been staring at it, and looking at it, and like internalizing it for so long that we're like, I guess we'll find out tomorrow. I mean, we think it's good, but we just don't even know.
You don't take it, or like, how many people do you actually share it with to let them get like an outsider view and say, what do you think about this? You do that at all?
You don't have teenagers in the house.
Yeah, I mean, we run ideas. No. I mean, we run ideas by like lots of people on the team and the Bonnaroo team, the staff here. I mean, the full lineup.
We collaborate with the team. It's not just two bros in an office putting this thing together. We ultimately are making the decisions on what
love to see that lineup.
Yeah. we're making the ultimate decision on what is chosen or not. But there's definitely a lot of team input.
Do you guys feel as though, as individuals, though, do you feel like you have certain strengths in certain genres more so than you do somewhere else? Like, for instance, you might be more of a hip hop guy and you just know it.
The C3 guys do the
EDM.
To the other, yeah.
And they do the experiences, the plazas. So
I think we obviously have our personal likes musically, but it's our job to know all of it, and so we are listening to music all day, every day. We are reading, studying, looking, talking to agents, managers, industry folks. I mean, this is literally, we live this. And so Steve might be better at, some of the more indie stuff, where as I might be a little bit better at some of the rock pop stuff, but we all know it, and it's not like I'm like having to convince him or turn him on to an artist, because for the most part he already knows it, and vice versa. So it really, if we didn't do that, then it would be hard, because we would constantly be having to say, like, if I'm not listening to any hip hop and Steve is, and he's like, well, why don't you know this? And I'm like, well, I don't want to book it because I never heard of it. We really have to have that conversation.
Have there been total disagreements?
Absolutely. Sure.
Do we want to go over one?
No, we don't want to go over them, but
we're not disagree a lot.
Yeah.
Going back to
sometimes we do, have to sell each other a little harder on something than,
it's not because we don't know the band, it's because we don't want to, but
yeah, exactly, because we see something that we feel very invested in, and we want to, but I mean that goes to something interesting, because like, it's great because it is very collaborative. Like, it's not just like, man, like if one person was like booking Bonnaroo or whatever, it's really, it makes it really fun and dynamic. And like, I think you can see a lot of the results by looking at the lineup and looking at like when the schedules come out and how you experience it on site, that like it's not just one person sitting there and putting this thing together. It's like ideas and constant conversation and like riffing off of someone else's ideas, you know, doing it in that way, I think really, really, really like, you know, is hopefully clear. And, you know, once you're on the festival site and experiencing like from the first up to the last off, you know, that kind of thing.
You're gonna say something.
I was just going to say, like, I think everyone here on the work of Steve and Bryan that they're doing, which is so great, is super proud when the lineup comes out, and it's really important to all of us. But there are a couple of factors, because the validation comes from, you know, the people that we're all serving, which is the Bonnaroo ticket buyer. Like, if they're not buying tickets, this thing is over.
Yeah.
So everything that happens is with them in mind to create an experience that they really delight in and love. However, we have no control over the economy. So like in the years where, you know, people don't have as much discretionary income, we're going to see a dip in ticket sales because those fans don't have as much money. And then the other thing, and this is what Ashley always says, Ashley Capps, who is the president of the business, he always says we're like miners who are out there, you know, trying to get scarce minerals and resources. Bryan and Steve can only mine the artists that are out there on this cycle. And if a couple of them that were really key parts of the overall headline experience don't want to do Bonnaroo or are going to skip it this time around, they're really limited. There are only a handful of artists that can play the elevated headline spots. And I think that's another factor that really ties into the, not the crowd part, but the ticket sales part, because if you can't get whoever just because they're not touring, it's not possible, that may be a factor in your overall sales at the end of the year.
That's a great analogy. You're not creating the gold, you're mining it.
We're just mining it.
Yeah, we're miners.
Do you guys to the reason why I asked that originally, what's your lineup look like? What's your lane? What is your path going to be on Friday? Because look, Friday to me, and look, I've tried to keep away from some of the platitudes because I've said them on this show plenty of times. But I mean, you guys are creating such a feeling and such an experience. And I've said this to Ashley. I thought, you know, Bonnaroo and Ashley pretty much saved music about 15, 16 years ago. Your lineup, your path, what does it involve on a Friday? Well, I have 16 artists I want to see on Friday. It's the damn near the best lineup day I have ever seen in a festival, and I feel like I've been to damn near all of them in the country. Friday is unbelievable.
It's pretty stacked.
Yeah, it is pretty stacked.
I don't know how we ended up with that. No, it worked out really well. That's probably a better question for my wife.
Okay.
Who I usually, let
you might be a
plot my path.
I think I felt like, sorry to cut you off there, but it just reminded me when I started, you know, like sort of bouncing off what we were working on for this year with my wife, and as excited as she got, I was like, okay, maybe we are actually onto something.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
it's the question.
Like her lane is definitely like that level of excitement coming from the wives was really like felt pretty good.
Have you ever overbooked an artist wait, what about this? Overbook is the wrong word. Have you ever booked an artist that you saw was petrified and killed it? Or the opposite? You saw somebody that saw a moment happening in their career. They could see it coming, and they were petrified. You didn't expect them to do as well as they did, and they absolutely blew it away. You ever have any one of those?
I can't think of anything in particular.
You ever find an artist that's just feels like the moment is just too big for them?
What do you think, Dad?
Never.
Yeah. You don't think so?
But I wouldn't say it if it... Like,
no, I understand.
Yeah.
But like, I wonder, for you guys as music professionals, if you look at an artist, you're like, ooh.
Yeah, but it's really hard to also say, because if you're not a fan of that artist, like sometimes you just don't know, and sometimes people are really feeling it who are like into it in the pit, and you've just gotten there for the last 10 minutes and you missed it.
It's hard to answer that.
Yeah,
the only thing I could say is I think we're really good at programming
Yeah.
and slotting and positioning, but we don't hit 100% of the time. And I think that there's definitely been some moments over the years where we looked back and thought maybe we would have done, like, I would have not put that band on that stage in that time. If that makes sense.
The genesis of that question is War and Treaty, wherein I don't know if they knew the moment that they were about to have, and they seemed like, oh God, this is the scariest moment of my life. And then they go out there and I feel like they changed their life. I mean, it changed one of my favorite shows I've ever been to at Bonnaroo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm bawling at the end of it. They're bawling after it. Afterwards, they're just hugging everybody as if, they had just had this amazing experience that they feel as though may have just changed.
Well, I think that's a better way to approach the question versus people sort of like not like succeeding in the slot that they were given or, being underwhelming or something. It's more about those times where it's an act that like has gone above and beyond, and like the experience and like the changing, like that moment, like you said with War and Treaty, like that was like a moment that was changing for the band and you, et cetera, and I can think of like Japan Droids on a Thursday night years ago. Like that band still is like, they hate festivals. The only festival they want to play is Bonnaroo because they still to this day tell me that was their number one, maybe their favorite show of all time.
That's awesome.
And I was there and I watched it and like it was insane. And we put that band on a Thursday night and like who the F knew who they were.
And I can't tell you how many comments from artists that we get that Bonnaroo is their favorite show of all time. And another one that comes to mind that I'll share that. This one I'm really proud of because she's had a long and storied and amazing career is Sheryl Crow.
Yep.
And Sheryl Crow, we still get comments from that camp that was her favorite show she's ever played, and that's I don't know how many shows Sheryl Crow's played. That makes us proud. But again, to me it all goes back to the fans because we have the best audience in the world, and if they're not showing up and being enthusiastic for every single show that we're putting out there, then artists aren't responding in that way, and that's what makes it.
John Prine last year, I mean, he danced off the stage. Yeah. Paul Janaway talked about that was his goal to play, and then we watched him come out early for like sound check. He just stood at the front of the stage. It just smiled. So there are a lot of those moments. So. I know you got to go.
You guys can keep rolling, but
Ted,
I've got bigger things ahead.
Beer things? You're speaking my language. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
About to say.
About to have surgery, so this is a good way to get me prepared.
Oh my God.
Yeah. In like an hour, right?
Wow.
48 minutes.
So basically, we've just been drugging you.
Yes.
He's ready. He's ready to go to sleep.
No anesthesia necessary.
If you're about to have surgery, listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm getting a Bonnaroo tattoo, but they need to put me under. So
can you get a copy to take with him to listen to?
If you need to head out, you head out. I just have a couple more, and then we can wrap it up.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Ted. Thank you
so much for making this happen.
Hopefully, we see you before the farm.
Absolutely.
All right. I've always wondered, because one of the things that Bonnaroo is known for, the thing that is so of their brand, is a super jam. How do you book that? How in the world does that happen? Do you have to find the right person who's willing to just take it and run with it, or do you have to specifically go and find the artist and add it to a contract?
No, it's not the latter. It's more about finding an act that's going to embrace what we're trying to achieve, and that can wants to really put in the time to put together a special moment and wants to present that at Bonnaroo. And a lot of it is relationship based, and what for us, it's Sylvan Esso's an artist that we've wanted to do something special with for years out there. And when I remember the moment I had a conversation with their manager about the fact that they were even considering toying with the idea of doing interpretations of their music with a full live band. Mm-hmm. My brain immediately went to,
Really?
Wonder if we could do something special. So even then, I kind of had immediately. I thought Super Jam, and so
I think a Sylvan Esso Super Jam might be one of the most unique things that you guys have come up with. And now that I know it's with a full band, now it starts to make sense. And I heard of that the other day. But that is such a weird pull. But I love weird.
And so they did a short run of this in November of 2019, this past year, and we presented the show at the Ryman, and I remember seeing the show in that moment, and I knew we had a home run because it was one of the most impressive and dynamic and beautiful and incredible shows I saw last year. And I just think I cannot wait for that to play at Bonnaroo and to have it be a Super Jam, which means there's going to be some fun things up our sleeves. It's going to be an amazing moment.
But they got to come up with the friends and family, right?
Well,
do they call in favors?
We do it together.
Okay.
It's a collaborative effort. Similarly, the Grand Ole Opry. We work very much hand in hand with the Opry team on crafting a Bonnaroo moment for the Grand Ole Opry. It's the same thing with the Super Jam. It's very much in collaboration with the festival and with us, and obviously the artists really drive it, but we're bringing a lot of ideas to the table and really working with them. We're using our relationships, the band's relationships, to try to come up with some pretty amazing special moments and special guests.
Have there been occasions where guys have played and then seen maybe a Super Jam and comes in, I want to do that?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Imagine that.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, and that's really, whether organically is a word or not. A lot of times the Super Jams almost come together in that way because we have artists that we book and they're playing the festival and we don't think of them in that way, but then they'll reach out and say, hey, have you thought about so and so? They might want to do the Super Jam. And we think, oh, that's really interesting, and so we go, yeah, or
everyone talks.
Yeah,
about it,
and so. Yeah. You never know who's going to be interested. And sometimes it's us reaching out and saying, hey, Billy Idol, will you come do this? Or, hey, Brittany Howard, will you come do this? Or sometimes it's them going with, hey, I'd like to participate in this.
Anybody on the spot ever decide to do it just on the fly?
Great question. I'm sure that's happened. I'm sure that's happened.
Yeah, okay.
Those shows are very planned. They're not, it's not like, in the moment, hey, let's do this cover song right now. They're rehearsed, they're thought through. They're obviously very improvisational in nature, but there's a lot of planning that goes involved. There's rehearsals that are involved as well.
Who on this lineup specifically best? We've talked about Lizzo earlier. Who on this lineup best represents your brand?
Wow,
there's a lot of them. I don't
know. It's hard to say any one band. Yeah, necessarily.
I kind of think that really, at the end of the day, like everybody that's on the lineup represents the festival and what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, is Tame Impala more on brand for Bonnaroo than Tool? They're both representative, it's right? Because that's a tribute to the brand itself, right? Is that
exactly.
That's what I think is so strong.
Yeah.
It's just strong, and it's what do we call it? Heavy. It's just heavy. It's heavy with good stuff.
Yep. It's insanely well rounded, and you guys should be celebrated for it. It makes it makes our life a lot easier because we have a lot to talk about. But you guys should really, and back to the point that you guys made earlier. The way that you can look back on a lineup is unbelievable. The way that you can backwards convince yourself that lineup was great, but in the front of it you're like again, it's never, we say this on the show all the time, it is never about a lineup. And I know Ted is right, and I know most people, I get it when they say that lineup creates dollars, but the beauty about Bonnaroo is it's almost insulated from the ebbs and flows of an industry, the ebbs and flows of a cycle or a financial crisis or whatever, because you've got an experience that is unlike anything else on the planet, and you've got a brand that is as strong as you can find that's connected to its audience. And you guys are, at least we like to showcase that on this show, and we appreciate you guys giving us this time, because this is not something that's happened, I think, ever. So this is a pretty big deal.
can't thank you guys enough.
Well, it's been a lot of fun talking to you, and we enjoy it.
I honestly, we are such nerds about this. We could literally talk about this all day, all day.
Well, we could meet up at Camp Nut
Camp
Butter.
Nut Butter. Yeah, we'll have a Camp Nut Butter meetup. Meet the bookers.
You know, Ken Weinstein was a guest last year on
We
Sunday.
couldn't get him to leave. We could not get him out of camp.
That sounds about right.
And it was terrific. So.
Yeah, Ken's the best.
Ken Weinstein owning camp is really one of the highlights of my weekend. I mean, just shooting off one-liners at everybody. You know, it was a really
He sent us a note
invigorating
afterwards.
experience.
It was like a radio show.
Well, that's what I do for a living. I do a comedy show.
That's great.
Thank you guys.
Guys,
so
amazing.
Our pleasure. Anytime.
Really
So
phenomenal.
glad we came up.
Thanks for coming up to Knoxville.
Yeah, it means that much to us. That's why it was worth coming up. And for you guys to give us as much time is unbelievable. So
Can't wait till June.
Yeah, no
that's
kidding.
either.
Yeah, right?
Thanks so much.
You got it.
Our chat with Steve, Ted, and Bryan from AC Entertainment, the guys that booked the lineup. Now, we appreciate you listening. If you were listening, I know there's some wonky Barry Quarter audio issues. Which here's what's crazy: it happens all the time. Barry Quarter's audio always just seems to be a little off every time.
And I think I'm yelling. I think I'm screaming.
I don't think
and it's so quiet.
How long have I known you? I've never heard you yell.
That's a good point. I probably haven't ever. You probably never.
I'm
heard
probably
me.
the closest person in your life that you've yelled at.
I yell at my car, and that's bad. My cat.
Yeah. There was a time where me and
Not
Barry
yelling.
took a little... we took a road trip to Knoxville, of course, as you saw. But me and him took a road trip to Forecastle one year, and I annoyed him so badly at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I thought he was going to reach through the wall and choke the hell out of me.
Well, I told you about the dream that I later had where you started doing that again while we were at Bonnaroo, and I came out of the tent and just went grape ape. Grabbed you by the ankles.
I might have spent the entire night sitting in one bedroom while he was in the other just yelling, Barry!
Oh, it was awful.
Barry, do you like grapes?
Bad memory.
It's very strange.
But anyway, what a interesting conversation with these guys, and what a great way to kick this year off.
Yeah, how about that little nugget of information that King Lizard King Gizzard is going to be with the doing late night. That's a big piece of information. We didn't know that.
Well, not just that, but out of that conversation, not only do they know who they're going after, but where they're going to play and when.
Yeah.
That's a lot of balls in the air.
That was
to try to
something-
keep straight.
We thought that we had most of this figured out. I did not think that that's how they did it. No, I did not think that they knew exactly where certain bands were going to play. Now, I had this idea that they have to know when they're going to book somebody like Brittany Howard. She needs to know something like that. We know you're going to be on a Friday, and we know it's going to be somewhere between 4 and 10, but I didn't know they specifically knew exactly which slot they were going to put each and every band. And it makes me think, about all the questions that we may have missed. When somebody like Brittany Howard, if she were to pull out,
Yeah.
I wonder who the backup would have been. And I know that they probably wouldn't have told me because, that gives a lot of things away, but boy, what happens when somebody like that falls through? If you've already got everything already lined up on the grid and already on the schedule, who do you slide in there? Do you find somebody that's more like her? Do you find somebody that's totally just who you can get? That part I wish that I would have, thought to ask.
I mean, you do it. You do the rotisserie football, and I don't know if you do baseball, but
Rotisserie football.
What's it called? What's it?
That's fantasy football.
It's changed. We used to call it rotisserie. You do fantasy football. That's what I always sort of imagine. Is you go in with your list.
Oh yeah, picking players.
And your number one's gone.
Yeah.
And depending on where you are, I mean, it's somewhat similar to that. But the other thing,
boy, that is an interesting analogy. That is a Barry Quarter specialty.
Yeah, well, but you go in with your list, and I'm sure they go in with their list. But here it was Grizzard, right? That he saw at a club. Was that the act that he saw? And it's like, I know where this needs to be.
Late night at Bonnaroo.
Calling Bryan and got it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I thought. I thought you said it right, that they go with their gut. But the fact that they have it all in their head years on out, I think we talked about driving home. how hard it would be if you dropped 2 people brand new in and said, go book this thing.
Right. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck trying to figure out this, because these guys, like we said in the show, a sponge, and they've got to be thinking about every angle, and it's like octopus arms. They've just got to always be thinking about who goes where it's going to go, if it falls through. Boy, the pressure that has, and that's why you probably give them a little bit more leniency if it's a lineup that you don't necessarily think is for you. This is really, really hard, and I don't know how I know how some of the other festivals do it, but I don't know how the big ones like Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza is a big committee, man, a big committee of people. I don't know how Golden Voice and Coachella does their lineup, but for 2 guys to be able to keep all of this straight is pretty remarkable.
Not just that, but they do other events, and they admitted themselves, this one's different. And it's because, and this was fascinating to me, all of the elements that you and I have talked about and sort of come to realize that are part of this festival, the plazas, the experiences, they have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
What's marketing doing? What's the plaza? What's going on in there? How is what we are doing going to work with that? I mean, so it's not just a crawl in a hole and get 80 acts or 100 acts.
Yeah.
There's a lot to consider.
Yep.
So.
And we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you being a Patreon. We've got some Patreons that we want to thank, and we're going to do that right here on the screen. If you're listening on the podcast version at thewhatpodcast.com, we'll read them to you. But if you're on the screen, they're scrolling past us right now. You know why? Because Lord Taco is a genius, and he's figured this out. Yes.
He took us to Camp Nut Butter in the middle of January.
Is that where we are?
That's where we are.
Wow.
It's amazing, isn't it?
I'm a little overdressed. We'll see you next week on The What Podcast.
Journey through the stories that define the artists playing Bonnaroo. Who are they? What are they? What will you see? The what? Which bands this year that matter? With Brad Steiner and Barry Corder.